mentioned your film work, and obviously I want to touch on that a little bit.
Sure.
Being Fallout, you've done Fallout Lanius.
Yeah.
Um, for anyone who doesn't know what Fallout Lanius is, can you explain how you got into that, where the idea came from, doing all of the crowdfunding and so forth for it?
Yeah, sure. So Fallout Lanius is kind of partly in response to kind of what was happening in kind of like fan films and stuff online because I was like really inspired by stuff like Nuclear Break, and I kind of wanted to do something in a universe I really really loved.
Mm.
But we're here in Perth, Western Australia, so I kind of wanted to do something that was uh, achievable. Like I knew I wasn't going to be able to do kind of jumpsuits and robots and lasers and downtown DC after being hit by a nuke and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of went about writing a story I could do using the landscape we have, exploring kind of the bad guys because that's like gray. I mean, Lanius isn't a gray character. He's a villain. Like you could call him a no, he's not an anti-hero. He's just a villain. Like he's not. He's an interesting villain, but he's still a villain. So
Yeah.
it was just kind of like a weird challenge, and I'd never done big action stuff before, and it's easily the hardest thing to shoot. And so we were like crowdfunding kind of at the end there, like we did a crowdfunding campaign for like 3 months, way too long to do a crowdfunding. But this was 2012, I think. At the end of 2012,
Mm-hmm.
we the film came out at near the end of 2013, and so we were shooting the film as we were finishing our crowdfunding. I was like, just like calling in favors and just, oh god, it's like the worst way to do anything. But we built like a really great audience, and we shot the film over a couple of weeks, and we had a lot of kind of like social media presence, and we also ended up having a lot of press, and it was my first time kind of dealing with gaming press, which were really really cool. Like everyone we dealt with was really really good, and so the whole story was this kind of like I guess if Conan the Barbarian was like a massive douchebag, that's kind of Lanius.
Fair enough.
If Conan was a bad guy,
Yeah.
I mean, and Conan's a pretty, he's a pretty badass, but he's not really a bad guy. And so, we've got this great performer on to play him, Johnny Domino, who's like a literal strong man.
He is.
Yeah, he's a literal strong man.
I've seen his circus performance.
Oh, have you? Yeah,
I was kind
yeah.
of scared by how strong he was.
Yeah, he's really, really strong, and he's a great guy, and he's like a MMA fighter and Muay Thai, and he'd done all this kind of stuff. So he's really, really physical.
Mm.
Wonderful performer, Karis Eves, who came on to play his kind of love interest style character. Karis Eves was in Australia's Next Top Model. She came fourth a few years ago now,
Mm.
and really, really great people, and like an exceptional team of like Perth filmmakers. I was very, very lucky to work with, and the idea was to always to like create something physical, create something we can do that's achievable, and then see how we can kind of make it work and if it'll be effective. And I think it did okay when we eventually let the film come out at the end of it was August 2013, and I think it did like 100,000 views in its first night, and I think now it's probably like 800,000 views or something. So it wasn't like
That's pretty
super
good.
it was okay. It wasn't like super real viral, but it was like viral enough to get a bit of interest swirling around. And
Yeah.
then I went through like a period of like having lots of kind of like meetings and chatting to people and a lot of press and stuff. But at the same time, when that film came out, YouTube was changing. YouTube was going from a views based system to an engagement system. So maybe you've heard a bit about it now, where it's primarily about how users engage with your channel
That's
for
right.
an extended amount of time. It's like views look great to the everyday punter,
Mm.
but they don't really matter in terms of engagement to money people, advertisers, and of course ad block, and like the whole behavior of users on YouTube has totally changed. So when I was like pitching my new show and stuff afterwards, it was like, oh yeah, look, we're not making as much money as we used to. And then it was like I was talking to people at like Machinima, and they're like, oh yeah, we just fired all these people, and so it was like the worst timing ever. So that's just the nature of tech.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving, and now everyone's
Yeah.
doing Twitch now as well.
Well, Twitch wasn't even really a big deal then, and now
No.
it's huge, and
Yeah.
it's really, really, really interesting. And yeah, I definitely love to, like, if I end up getting kind of my IP in a place where we've got gameplay and footage and whatever we're doing, I'd love to see Twitch players play it. And of course, like anything to do with games now is really kind of personality based, and it's primarily Twitches and YouTubers and that kind of stuff, as opposed to online media, or online it's not really online print, but like, game blogs and games websites and stuff. It's mainly video now.
It definitely is, and it's going even further. You've got esports taking over,
Mm.
and massive amount of people watching it.
Oh, yeah.
ESPN showing esports on their own channels now
No,
too.
that's crazy.
It's scary how we've progressed from just watching a couple of videos on YouTube a day because our internet was so slow
Yeah,
to now streaming our own content, and anyone can do it at any time.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting. It's a pretty exciting place to be in. So, yeah. So since then, like I've done like my other films were like kind of hardcore dramas. So the film I did before Lanius was like a film which won a bunch of awards here in Perth. It won Best Film and the
Hmm.
People's Choice Award, and it was a film dealing with like cyclic child abuse. It was like really really heavy, and I learned a lot. It's a beautiful film, but like it's really really heavy. And then I did Lanius, and then another film I made with a fantastic. Colleague of mine called Peter Gabriel was a film called Barrow, which was actually about
Mm.
a forensic entomologist. So it was kind of like a Silence of the Lambs meets kind of Silent Hill. Like it was totally different film. And now what I've been working on since that is like this kids IP. So it's like I'm genre
I've been
swapping
reading about
every
this.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like totally different kind of thing. It's like a Pokemon meets post-apocalyptic with a kind of Goonies attitude. And I've been working it for 2 years, like the concept alone. So we're hoping to announce it this year. It's been a long ride.
All I can imagine with that is going through a desolate wasteland with a Pokeball in my hand, going, "Come on, Venusaur, we've got to find water or something here. This is great."
Yeah,
Pikachu's like, whatever.
yeah,
It's got its
yeah.
third arm and fourth arm coming out of it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. It's a fun world to be in, and it's very weird, kind of like of course kid stuff. I mean, and when I say kid stuff, I mean it's like, when I think of the kid stuff I like, it's like Avatar: The Last Airbender or
Yeah.
Harry Potter or The Legend of Korra, which is pretty complex stuff. And like, Avatar: The Last Airbender is like 6 to 11, which is the same kind of demographic we're doing, but that scope is much wider because plenty of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds who love Avatar: The Last Airbender. So it's I don't know, the
But
kids
not the
market.
movie, only the animated show.
No,
We don't talk about the movie here.
no way. I haven't even seen it yet.
Oh,
I've only just experienced both those series this year, and I had friends like, don't ever see the movie. You will
No.
cry. It's
I,
so bad.
I, I made the mistake of watching it in 3D of all things at a cinema when
wow.
it came out, and completely regretted it, especially when they kept calling Ang or Ang instead of Ang because they
Oh, man.
pronounced it incorrectly. So
Yep.
yeah,
That's
it's not worth it.
nah, not worth the pain.
Definitely not worth the pain. As a fan of the show, it's just like, why would you do that? I don't understand.
I don't know.
The funny thing is, with Lanius, I was actually at PAX when you guys showed it
No
off for
way.
the first time. I was in, I think, the third row because it was the very first PAX.
No way.
I was
That's
there for that.
amazing.
I was really impressed by it.
Amazing.
It was one of those things because I being in Perth myself, I knew about it, and when I went over to PAX that first time, it was one of the first things I had on my timetable because I wanted to know what people in my neighborhood were making.
We didn't meet, did we? I didn't. Did we?
I
did we
wish
say hello,
I
or
wish
no?
we had, but we hadn't. No.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Because I am an introvert. Let's be honest.
Sure.
Which is why I don't have a webcam right now. And we're only doing this by audio. But I'm progressing. But yeah, I remember seeing it, and I was really impressed with it, with the way we were able to create something on. And as much as it was a crowdfunded effort, it was still a small budget.
Yeah, tiny, like not even 20 grand, which is nothing for filmmaking. It's yeah. Oh, that's really cool. You're there. It was pretty nerve wracking.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, there was me and Stuart McKenzie, the producer, and there was my brother, who was like one of the associate producers because he invested money in it. And then there was graphic designer Jeffrey Phillips, and then there was our key artist Simon Boxer, who did that. Like whenever you Google Lanius, there's that bit of art of Lanius fighting a couple of tribals.
That's right, yeah.
And that's like everywhere now. Like every now and again, it ends up on like the front page of our Fallout, and I have to kind of ping Simon and say, "Hey, your stuff's on the front of our Fallout again." And he'll laugh, He's like, "Yeah." He's like, he'll be like, "Man, I've Googled something like, I don't know, like post-apoc concept art," and this is him saying this, and he'll be like, "Oh, look, that's that bit of art I did." So it's like, it's that like tremendous kind of sharing, I think.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It's interesting how there's other fan films coming out through all these other social media platforms and things like that. But you've also got, Assassin's Creed are making them. Ubisoft are doing a version of that as well. The way we're able to create content for anything at any time.
Yeah.
But the quality is always pretty lacking, even when there's a high budget.
Yeah,
and it makes you wonder. Which is why I was so impressed with you guys, because you're able to take something and create it and not worry about necessarily how much money you got to spend on it. You're still making as much as you can out of that.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's the I don't know. I think that's the challenge of filmmaking, especially when you've spent a long time in low budget filmmaking, that there's very little bloat and you're doing everything in the most kind of economic sense, which is really, really hard to do for an extended amount of time. But you learn a lot of tricks and you learn to get the most out of every dollar, however you can. But yeah, look, it's a weird space. Like fandom, sometimes it's really incredible stuff, and there's normally an imbalance. And I can see Fallout Lanius for all the warts on it. Like I know everything that's wrong with it.
Yeah.
And really, I was primarily really surprised by the YouTube response to it, because YouTube commenters get and sometimes very much, rightly so, they get like a tremendously bad rep. But we had like a high 90% just positive comments, I think, to this day on that video, which came out end of 2013. So I don't know, YouTube was kind of really good. And I don't think the response to the film was. I think the response to the film from fans and even everyday YouTubers is really, really positive.
Yeah.
So that's really, really cool.
That's good.
But it's like, and it's always a competition, I think, between I think there was a competition between quality technical and quality performance.
Yep.
And you might because there was that crazy Star Wars fan film which had this really beautiful CGI in it. But then, every performer was completely miscast, and they weren't they weren't experienced performers. But then, you'd cut to this beautiful CGI, and you're like, oh man, look at that. And then it'd cut to someone would talk, and you'd go, ooh, and that's not their fault. That's inexperienced performers. That's completely comes with the whole thing. But yeah, fan filmmaking is like that, I mean, and there's a few guys who've made their whole careers on YouTube. If you think of your Freddie Wongs and even the Nuka Break guys, because they've done a lot more stuff besides that, besides the Nuka Break films, they've got all kinds of short film content, and and they've and they're primarily the high quality guys, and everyone else can do the technical stuff, they get the costumes right and get this right, but then there might be narrative issues or storytelling issues or performance issues. I think performance issues are even the big ones, because you can sometimes have a kind of crappy script, but if you've got a great performer, their interpretation can turn it around. And good performers or experienced performers are normally hard to find and expensive.
Was there anything in particular, if you look back at what you did with Lanius, was there anything now, if you had a chance to do it again, that you would change?
Probably our entire, or my entire, not really our, because it's on me, the responsibility lies with me, probably my approach to all the fight stuff.
Yeah.
And completely relying on in-camera effects, physical effects. We didn't have the money or time to do it the way I wanted to do it at the time. But again, I was the kind of producer and director and writer, so it comes back to me.
You had a lot of things on your plate, essentially.
Yeah. But it's I think the CGI is fine if you compare it to a film like 300 with that kind of stylized CGI. But I would definitely I'd definitely do it all physical in camera in the future, because it's just hard to make blood look good unless you are doing that whole 300 thing.
Yeah.
And especially with sword work, and it's just complex. And we had a lot of training, and we did a lot of rehearsal for fight scene stuff, but it's hard to shoot, and it's hard to make it look good, and it's also you're trying to be safe as well. That's the priority. So
that's a big thing. Yeah.
The safety is the safety is more important than making it look good or getting the right amount of coverage, or safety is paramount. So that costs time, and if you don't have a lot of experience, it affects the end product. So
that's right. Well, there's so many actors now who are doing their own stunts.
Yeah,
you can imagine that their agents and the insurers are just freaking out.
Yeah, that's right.
Ever since The Matrix, that everyone's like, no, I can do that myself, and just throw themselves into it.
Well, you must have seen the Tom Cruise video, right? Is that what you're? Did you see
Yeah,
the Tom? Yeah, of course. That's
doing their own thing.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, there must have been just insurance people just screaming that entire time, like, Tom Cruise is going to fly off the side of a plane, and it'll kill the film, including my career and the studio. Like, oh my God! But good on him for doing it. Like, that was pretty impressive stuff.
At least he would have died with a smile on his face,
Yeah, absolutely.
or at least we would
Absolutely.
have hoped so. It looks so by this camera angle.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I'm about halfway through this opening sequence now. I think in
Sure.
Fallout 3, so I'm at the
Where are
point
you
where,
now?
well, I'm sort of talking to Stanley and Andy, and the rat roaches are sort of infesting the area, and my father apparently, poor Liam Neeson, has disappeared. So I'm trying to find my way out of that. So hopefully I'll be able to figure it out.
Is this the fires? Is everything on fire as well? And it's kind of going to.
I think they are. Yeah, I think there's a
Yeah,
few
it's
things that are.
and Butch wants you to help save his mum, I think.
That's right. I've saved the mum,
Yeah. Okay.
which he
Cool.
was very grateful for, except there was a glitch where he kept running into his mum for some reason. I'm not really sure what happened there.
Yeah.
Um,
Classic.
there's one thing I do want to ask you, and coming from someone who I guess you could say doesn't drink at all or doesn't smoke at all. I've
Yeah.
never taken drugs.
Sure.
For the last month, you've been completely off the bottle.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
was this by personal choice or?
Well, I've got a very dear friend who's got terminal brain cancer, and
Mhm.
so and also it's like 2015's been a big year of just trying to do new things.
Yeah.
And so it's not like I drink a lot, but I've actually come to realize that I do drink enough for it to affect me. And I said, well, look, I've got someone very dear to me, and they're not very well, and like you can raise a bit of money, and you can kind of be a bit healthier. I mean, healthier is probably not the right term because I've
Yeah.
totally substituted alcohol with just junk food, so that's not much better.
Fair enough.
But so like I probably drink 4 times a month on a Saturday night, and it's normally if I really get into a bender and I'm like drinking scotch and smoking cigars, and most likely listening to the Fallout 3 licensed soundtrack over and over again, like a drug addiction. It's terrible. I couldn't tell you the amount of times I've listened to that particular video on YouTube, which has just got all the I love that playlist is just incredible.
I've lost count of the amount of times I've seen that original Fallout 3 trailer.
Yeah.
Just that opening sequence.
Yes, that's right. But yeah, look, it has played a big role. I think I feel a bit better. I think my moods are a bit more even. But man, I've noticed that when it's like the weekends and it's kind of like, oh, look, I could go for a drink.
Mm.
It's Friday, Saturday nights, probably the big ones. And you realize how often you drink when you don't. So it'd be like Friday night, I'd be like, hey, do you want to go and get a drink? Oh no. Hey, the wine and food festival's on. Oh no, can't go to that. Oh, we're going to this thing. You want to come up for drinks? Oh right, okay. It's kind of like, okay, I get it. So it's yeah. So we'll see the kind of role it's played, and I think maybe when I come back to it, I probably won't drink as much as I did, even though. I don't know. I didn't drink as much, but then when I'd tie it on, I'd really kind of get stuck into it, and I'd drink till the early hours if it's a Saturday night, and I'd read and drink and listen to music records, all this kind of stuff, because I'm a huge jazz fan. So I've got all these old records and fireplace and all that kind of stuff, and it's very hard to not just kind of go, oh, just I'll pour another drink and just do one more record, or like a cigar, like a good cigar goes for like 2 hours, so that's like about 2 hours of drinking, as well as smoking, as well as staying up, and then I might have like chocolates with it. So it's all these kind of bad behaviors, except for the music. It's all these bad behaviors kind of stuck together. And now I'm not doing any of it. I haven't had a cigar all month, and I haven't had a drink and now I can't really listen to much jazz because it makes me want to do the other two.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on the chocolate thing. No, I'm terrible with that.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a habit of going through, the TV snacks you can get.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I go through maybe a box of those like a day.
For real? Wow.
Yeah, just finish it and all that.
Yeah.
I'm terrible, and yet I've got nothing on me. I'm like a stick figure. It's terrible.
Oh, that's good.
It's
That's good.
it's not good.
It'll stay with you maybe, or maybe you'll hit that age and it'll just be like, boom, here's your metabolism.
Yeah, I'll be in my 50s and suddenly I'll just explode out. I'll be like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I'll just appear out of nowhere walking down the street.
You can misuse it until you get to that point though, so that's fine.
Well, you're fundraising for this thing as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. So
Where can people go?
Yeah, just I don't know the actual URL, but you can just kind of Google Wade Savage Dry July, and it should bring up my account. And I've raised about $475 or something. And all I
Nice.
want to do is raise about $500 this month.
Oh, you're nearly there then.
Pretty close. Yeah, I'm nearly there. So
Nice.
that's. And I advise anyone who wants to give it a go to do it. It's both easier and harder than you think, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. It's I don't well. If I did it, it would have to be something that I would do a lot of. So I'd probably have to give up chocolate for a month.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of doing Lent when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I hated that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you get to eat chocolate at the end of the month. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's cool.
Fallout 4. Let's get back to that for a
Sure.
sec. What are you looking forward to most out of that?
Man, I think just kind of exploring a new world. I'm definitely looking forward to a lot of the kind of like new music choices and hopefully some really kind of well fleshed out characters. I have been thinking a lot about that kind of base building stuff, even though I've never really been into that gameplay before. But
Yeah.
it just looks really fun.
I was
And
interested by
yeah,
that too. It was kind of unusual to have a game that basically took the concept of a mobile phone game and put it into a big budget release. It was essentially what it is.
yeah, that's right. It's that kind of Minecraftian slash Lego system of play. It's like
Mm.
here's kind of like the building blocks. The story's yours. We're not gonna. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, there might be little narrative notes here and there, but like if you look on like Reddit, it's people saying, "I'm going to do this," and the theme of my place is going to be this, and I'm going to trap people and do this, and that's the kind of thing they're banking on people doing that, creating those stories about how they develop their own little slices of paradise. And yeah, so I think that sounds kind of fun, and I think maybe that might play into that, like, look, I don't want to do a quest right now, I might work on my house.
Yeah.
I might fix some fences and do this, and like I'm not going to go out and find a quest. I'll just work on this and hopefully fend off raiders or mutants or whatever. I think that sounds really fun.
Is there such a thing of having too much content? I guess it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier. Is there just too many things you can do?
I think so, and I think there's like a weird anxiety, and again, I've been feeling that with, like, I don't normally feel it with Bethesda games because, again, like I'm a little bit critical of their storytelling, so I don't have that feeling like, oh, I'm going to miss out on some really cool story. But I'm definitely getting out The Witcher. I'm like, oh man, if I miss this, I might miss a cool little moment of storytelling if I don't hit all these little question marks.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think with the Fallout games, they've got so much longevity. So, you always come back to them. Like I always come back to new. Like I was only playing New Vegas and Fallout 3 again just this year. I just restarted a new character and I was just goofing around. Normally, when I want to be a real schmuck, so I play through normally a neutral, nice guy, and then I come back and I can do all the kind of nasty things. But I think you're right. I think there can be too much content. But if there's lots of content, I mean, there's lots of content in a lot of games that are open world, but a lot of them are just kind of junky. So
Yeah.
if it's junk, you kind of go, I don't care about that. Like this, like I haven't touched Gwent. I haven't played Gwent. I haven't done a fist fight. I haven't done a horse ride in Witcher 3. Yeah, and I'm sure the content's fine, but I don't really care about it. But I do care about Witcher contracts, and I do care about narrative. I do care about meeting new characters and kind of killing new monsters. So that's there's my anxiety, and like I'm not going to find all these monsters. These monsters are really interesting, and they have these kind of cool themes to them.
Do you go after achievements and trophies as much as I do? Do you want all of the achievements?
No, I'm terrible. I've never been a kind of Chivo hunter because I've never been like overly good at video games. So I do get that little ping in my brain if I do get a trophy or whatever. But I've never been like checking stats and going, oh, have I got all these? Have I got all these? I've just never been that way inclined. It's always narrative for me. I'm a story guy.
That's it's interesting because I've always felt like with achievements anyway, it kind of adds extra content to the game.
It does.
At least when they first came out, it was like, okay, well, I finished the game now. Now what do I do? Do I just give it back for $5 at EB Games, or do I go and do something else with it? It adds even more gameplay to it. But now it feels like they're just shoehorning it in just because people like the idea of having achievements. Like there was the Halo game that came out not too long ago, the Master Chief Collection, and they had about, I think it was about 10,000 achievement points you could get.
Wow.
And it was just random stuff for every single thing you could do in the game.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's actually got all the achievements in that yet. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't be at that because that game was pretty broken, wasn't it? So
It was. It was terrible. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned about how long Fallout 4 has been in development, whether it'll actually be, to a point where it's perfect, or at least as close to perfect as you can get in the time frame they've got to make things, because you can imagine with a lot of big budget games now, they're kind of fretting after, Batman failed on PC.
Yeah.
Both Halo and Assassin's Creed Unity last year as well failed.
Far out. Yeah. It's in that patch culture, so to speak, isn't it? It's like, well, we'll just drop a big patch day one, and
we won't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll be fine. I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure, like, there's an old adage in Hollywood which is like, no one wants to make a bad film, but plenty bad films are made. And I think that's the same with games. It's like no one wants to make a bad game, but plenty of bad games have come out. They've got all these issues, and because there's like, there's financial quarters, and there's like delivery schedules, and there's like retailer agreements, and all these kind of things that affect a good work of art or a good product coming out. But I'm not super worried about technicalities on Fallout, and I think it'll be a heavily patched game anyway if they're going to do mod support, because that's going to have so much infrastructure involved. Who knows how they're going to police it? I think that's. We will see those paid mods come back.
Yeah,
I have no doubt, because they just need. Not that they need to make the money, but they will want to make the money, and you'll probably get, like what's happened with YouTubers. You'll probably get like semi-pro mod creators. I mean, I know we've already kind of got them, but they'll actually be like, hey, it's a new mod from 5-star 220, and he's the guy or she's the girl who does these crazy, I don't know, bat mods or whatever. Like, people will become famous for their mods, and then they'll get a kickback from Bethesda, and users will have to pay for them because the content will be of higher quality. And I think there'll be a vetting process as well. So that means you've got moderation and people kind of looking through content to make sure there isn't something lewd in there or whatever, because they're going to have to keep to everything's going to be classified. Like, if you know anything about filmmaking classifications, it's super expensive. Like, it costs money for a board of people to say this is G or this is PG or whatever, and so you're going to have to reclassify mods, and it's just going to be, it's going to cost money. So I think it's going to cost users money eventually.
The mod scene on PC is pretty massive, but what I'm curious to see is whether they'll bring it across to Xbox One, because Windows 10 is coming out soon.
Oh, okay.
And that's going to that's going to open up a whole new area of possibilities between Xbox One and Windows computers. So
yeah,
I'll be interested in that too.
Oh, Fallout. That's it's Oblivion with guns, or whatever the terrible joke was.
Or in this case, with Fallout 4, Skyrim with guns.
Skyrim with guns. That's right.